So I'm Peter Robbins-Brown with Louisiana Progress. So as we've all heard today, and most days when this discussion has come up for the past 30 years, it often turns into this argument about the legal environment and issues related to that and actuarial, which the demonstration was great. Thank you. Helped me understand it better, at least. What we wanted to look at is to get away from all of that. We figured our insurance rates, when you look at them, compared to average income, are the highest in the country. And there had to be more reasons for that than legal stuff. We really started looking at this a couple of years ago. One of our former college fellows, Jaden Nix, who is a Southern University graduate, her family was from Louisiana, but she grew up in Texas, and she also had family in Mississippi. And she was looking at all the insurance rates across our neighbors, and we were much higher than our neighbors. And she asked the question, why is Louisiana's insurance so much higher, auto insurance so much higher than Mississippi? And so we started looking into this, and again, really wanted to look at these kinds of factors that don't relate to the legal environment. And so we've been looking into this for a while because we recognize that if you can lower rates or at the very least flatten any increases, that's essentially a tax break for Louisiana families, and it would disproportionately benefit the folks who we try to serve, which are low and middle income earners and poor folks in Louisiana. And so we've been looking at this for a while. We think we've identified a few things. And again, we were really looking for where we were outliers in certain areas. So I'm going to hand it over to my colleagues here, and then I'll come back to close at the end.
Thank you. My name is Elai Levinson. I'm a student at LSU. I'm also a Louisiana driver, so the issue of the high auto insurance costs affect me at a personal level. And like Peter said, we've been looking at this issue for years now, and trying to pinpoint what makes auto insurance rates in Louisiana that much more expensive than in Mississippi. And I'll just throw some numbers at you very briefly. The website MarketWatch, they frequently update a car insurance cost comparison by state, and that's based on ongoing research that they conduct. And as of their most recent update, which was October 2024, Louisiana was found to be among the most expensive states for auto insurance in the country, with an average annual full coverage premium of $4,357. And in comparison, Mississippi has an average annual full coverage premium of $2,140. Which means that Louisiana drivers, on average, are paying around twice as much for car insurance than Mississippi drivers. And like it's been mentioned before, the models that insurers use for rate setting is a secret. We can't say for certainty which factors are weighted more heavily than others. And we understand the reason for this secrecy. It's for proprietary reasons, for business reasons. Raising Cane's doesn't give out the recipe for their amazing cane sauce. We all, it doesn't make sense from a business perspective for them to do that. But that secrecy just makes it a bit more difficult for legislators, for regulators, for advocates, as well as for the average driver to figure out which factors are incorporated into these calculations and how each of them are weighted. So in order to understand why we pay more for car insurance than Mississippi, what I've been doing over the past few months is more or less reverse engineering the auto insurance model. In other words, in my kitchen, recreating the cane sauce, throwing in different ingredients and seasonings to try to figure it out. And like Peter said, trying to find the factors that indicate that we are outliers compared to our neighbors. And while we're still working on this analysis, and it's something that we're going to be working on throughout 2025 and throughout the future, there are two factors that I wanted to bring up that stood out to me so far. And the first one is pedestrian fatality. The second one is cyclist fatality. Louisiana sticks out among not only among southern states, but among the country as a whole of having some of the highest rates in the country. So for example, for pedestrian fatality, and this is according to the U.S. Department of Transportation, we have a rate of 3.94 pedestrian fatalities per 100,000 people, and that's data from 2022. Mississippi, on the other hand, has a pedestrian fatality of 2.76 out of 100,000 people. And for cyclist fatality, Louisiana has a rate of 0.98 per 100,000, Mississippi 0.58 per 100,000. And so while the difference between 4 and 2.75, or the difference between 1 and 0.6, it may not seem significant, when it's plotted on a scatter plot chart, which on the page 2 of the one where it says Louisiana versus everyone else, you can clearly see that there's a correlation. Louisiana, the dot is in yellow, Mississippi is in gray, and the rest of the states are in blue. And I'm willing to bet that insurers, they look at our state's high pedestrian and high cyclist fatalities, and they deem us more riskier than our neighbors. I'm going to keep it very brief. I just wanted to tell y'all about a situation that happened in November of last year. My dad was visiting me here in Baton Rouge, and it was a great time. We got to spend time together. He got to see me at LSU. And we were walking one night outside of LSU on Burbank Drive. And we waited for a green light for the walk sign to come on, start to cross, and we noticed that a pickup truck turning left into our crosswalk was not yielding. And luckily I was able to get out of the way. But my dad was struck with full force, and he was knocked to the pavement, and he landed right on his head. And he was bleeding, he was unresponsive, and the truck sped off. And thankfully he came to, and thanks to the great work and the great staff and the doctors and nurses at Our Lady of the Lake, he's pretty much made a full recovery. He's already back to working, spending time with his photography. He's helping my sister out as she's graduating high school in a few months and starting college. And I bring that up just to talk about that. This is not a one-off. These kinds of accidents occur very frequently in Baton Rouge and across the state. And when I look back to that night, I try to think how it could have been avoided if we had better lit streets, if drivers across the state were less distracted, if the speed limits near a lot of near areas where pedestrians are crossing, if they were lower, if our road infrastructure encouraged car safety. And listen, so I'll close with this. I think if we really want to lower auto insurance rates for Louisiana drivers, and I believe we all do, like Peter said, we need to look beyond some of these arguments that have traditionally driven, pun intended, this discussion, and try to figure out what is making us such an outlier. And we've identified that improving infrastructure and improving road safety seem like areas that would fairly well fit neatly into some of the legislators' other priorities. It should come at a relatively low cost that would provide that financial bonus, that tax cut in the form of less, paying less for insurance, while at the same time saving lives and making our state safer. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry to hear about your dad. I hope he's okay.
He's actually, I sent him the link to the broadcast, so he's watching this and he's doing fine. He's,
Good.
Yeah.
Look, since session ended last June, we have had 5 different committees: Jude A, Jude C, Senate Insurance, House Civil Law, and House Insurance. And we've met, 6 times, I think, since then, 7 times, to study just that. The Speaker and the President said, look, wipe everything off the table, look at everything. I mean, we had medical bill testimony, we had this, we had that. We looked at fatalities. So I'm looking at the chart that I use, and I'm not going to do every state, but auto, and I'll admit, I did not look into pedestrian fatalities or cyclists, but I will. But if you look at auto fatalities, we had a rate of 1.71. per 100,000 people. South Carolina had 1.97, Mississippi 1.9, Arkansas 1.88. All have very good rates compared to us, just saying. As far as, we've looked, I'll tell you one thing you want to look at in Mississippi. They cap bodily injury damages. Look at that. There not many states do it, and I'm not saying I'm an advocate for that because I might get hit one day. But I would be willing to bet that that plays a big part in the reason why they have affordable, much lower rates than we do is because they cap bodily injury. So look at that. You can give him my information. I'd love to have any kind of data y'all can get. But, we looked at vehicle thefts, traffic density, uninsured. Now, uninsured motorists, we're number one. We're not number one I'm sorry. We're not number one in uninsured motorists. We're kind of near the middle. Underinsured, we're number one, far and away. That's a problem that, if we do that, if we raise the minimums, we're going to be the number one in uninsured. So that's a delicate thing. But, we've looked at road conditions, fatalities, traffic density, vehicle thefts, gender, credit, age. I didn't see any outlier where we're an outlier in any of those things. But, hey, I'm always willing to listen. Who wants to go next? Go ahead.
I'll go next if no one else has questions for my colleague Eli. Good morning, folks. I'm Merrilee Montgomery with Louisiana Progress. I basically took what he started with as a jumping off point and tried to drill down for you guys these factors on a zip code level within Louisiana. So rather than comparing between states, we're looking within Louisiana on a zip code level here. And what you see before you is just that, except with, as you've already spoken to, with the underinsuring, the state minimum liability rather than full coverage. And I'm actually going to start at, I'll probably start on the backside here, actually. I just want to point out 3 and 4 support my colleagues' findings that the things that typically, the non-driving factors that we often look towards with the credit score and the high school graduation don't particularly well explain the auto insurance minimum premiums on a zip code level in Louisiana. So you can see that the plot there really doesn't look how we'd like it to look if we were looking for an explanation. But if you turn to the backside in this green plot, we're looking at auto insurance premiums compared to the population in each zip code. And that's a much better plot here. Makes a much better line that's more descriptive. And what we find is that as the population goes up within a zip code, the state minimum auto insurance premium also goes up. And that makes sense when you think about it. When you have more people around, more people driving cars, more people walking, more people biking, you're more likely to hit someone or something.
Sure. And that's not unique to Louisiana.
Yeah.
I mean, the zip codes in Atlanta versus the zip codes in Macon, Georgia.
Absolutely.
Probably, so we're not an outlier there.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
And then you get to where I'm from, and
Okay,
there's one
sorry.
car on the road anywhere, and it's nothing. But anyway, that's beside the point. Atlanta traffic's different, though. But this is a relationship we'd expect to see, like you said. And it gets towards this issue of urbanization, and that's something that we can do things with. That's something that we can improve. The flow of traffic, the safety of the pedestrians and cyclists that my colleague has already spoken to. And what I have for you in these other 3 purple charts here are comparisons with the network density and intersections, also measures, if you will, of urbanization. And then this last one, which is, I think, the best description we have so far, which is the pedestrian use / it's also, the feds call it walkability. But if you look at it, what it's really made out of is, as an index, it's a bunch of different factors that they put in a pot and melted down. What it's a mixture of is intersections. So, can you walk along a road to get where you need to go? It's a mixture of land use mixture. So, do you live within proximity to somewhere you'd want to walk to? Do you live in distance to a Walmart or Rouse's or something?
And is there a sidewalk? Is there a...
It doesn't take that into account, though.
Okay.
It takes into account the network density and the intersections, but doesn't take into account a sidewalk. And I can paint a picture for you for what that'll look like. Jefferson Parish, if you will, down towards Harahan Elmwood,
My district.
No sidewalks.
What a coincidence.
Maybe not. I'd never thought about it. Maybe not.
No sidewalks. So you can walk along the shoulder of Jefferson Highway, a major road, plenty of stuff alongside it, but there's no sidewalk for the majority of it, and you can dodge traffic along that and be at risk for becoming one of those pedestrian fatalities. So, and that's what I wanted to bring for you guys today. It's a question of urbanization, like you said. It makes sense. We see this in other places as well. But if we can build a better, safer environment for people to walk around
Sure.
in.
And just do this for me. See if, again, urbanization, I don't think is unique to Louisiana. But, if there's other cities that are tackling that, we should do it anyway. Not just because it might be able to lower rates, but we should do that anyway. But I mean, find me that thing that says, because everything you tell me I agree with, but I don't think that's unique to Louisiana. Maybe we're less walkable than other urban areas.
That's the closing.
Well, yeah, maybe just my district.
No, it's not.
Yeah, but I'm sure Mississippi is not walkable as much either, or maybe it is. I don't know, but I think it's worth show me those comparisons where it looks that and but I appreciate.
And so if I could close that, I'm actually going to.
Regina, do you want to ask?
Yeah.
You want to wait, or you want to ask a question now?
I got
Okay.
Oh, and she has one more point, and then I'll close, and then we'll take questions. We're trying to move it along.
That'll work.
I know we're
That'll
getting
work.
late.
My one last piece is if we flip back to the first page, I could have rearranged these a little differently, and look at those first two plots there with the estimated insurance premium costs, and this is on a monthly basis rather than annual. We see that there's a range in how much insurance costs across Louisiana, in New Orleans versus Shreveport, that sort of thing. But there's also a range within like one location between a high estimate and a low estimate. And so we see that high estimate ranges a lot more. So there's a lot more variation within one zip code. And that's another interesting aspect of this, which is it's all these questions of how can we essentially make it safer to be driving, safer to be walking, safer to be getting around the state. But on an individual zip code level, there's still discrepancy there. And I hope to drill down into that more in the future, but I thought I'd bring that to y'all's attention.
Okay.
And all of this data is available online in this web app.
Okay. And do me a favor, email me this, and I'll shoot it to the Senate.
Yeah.
All right.
I'll close. I'll be quick.
Go ahead.
So just, we don't want to just come here to point out problems. We wanted to actually come with some ideas. And obviously a lot of what I'm going to suggest here is going to be more about going through a transportation committee and maybe appropriations and finance. But I think it's important because to your point, it's not just about lowering insurance rates. It's about just making us safer. We don't want people getting killed or, severely injured. And as we know, bringing it back to insurance, the more serious the injury, the more we start talking about the legal and that being really high, right? So a few things that I want to point to. We do, generally speaking, and we'll get you better numbers on this, which is what we're working on, have a sort of a worse built and design environment than other states. One of the things you'll see is that on one of Eli's charts, that I believe is the cyclist or pedestrian safety, where the other blue dot is Florida, which also has a notoriously bad sort of like road design and built environment. Some of the things that we can do more of and that other states are doing a lot more of, there's three things in particular we want to bring to your attention. Number one is roundabouts. There's a reason that so many more states and you look at the last 10 years are building more roundabouts. Not only does it improve the flow of traffic, it's just much safer. So building more roundabouts is actually something that we can do that will improve traffic and improve safety. Road diets. Road diets is kind of a fancy term. Since we're in Baton Rouge, you might know Government Street through Mid-City, which used to be a 4-lane, sort of residential commercial area. It got reduced to 2 lanes with like a boulevard and bike lanes. Not only did accidents go way down once they did that, it improved the economic area, the economic opportunity there. You see a lot more businesses, restaurants, all sorts of things. So again, that's something we can do that improves the just lived experience, but it actually brings more economic opportunity. The third thing I want to point to is streetlights. which is good for these issues. It's also really good for just public safety and crime reduction. There's a lot of research out that shows that making sure that streetlights are operating and that you even add more streetlights is a really good crime reduction tool. But it also helps with reducing these issues. So those are three in particular that we would point to. There's a few others, and those are things that other cities and states are doing really well that we are not, and I think would help improve a lot of these issues, in particular auto insurance rates. Happy to take questions.
All right, thank you. I'm going to duck down for an interview on auto insurance, so I'm going to let him take over. But
we
thank
need
y'all.
more sidewalks in Elmwood, man.
apparently
It's
we do.
you know, I mean, it's your district is actually a perfect example of a district that could use a better design and build environment. I know it's not your fault. That's
I'll
a
pass
Jefferson
that on
Parish.
to
Yeah, but
my
I mean,
local government.
just to say, like, yours is a perfect example.
All right, he's going to take over. Thank y'all, and
We'll get it all to you
yeah.
in a better, little bit easier to read format. Yeah.